I've always been a deep sleeper. The kind who could nap through thunderstorms, sirens, even fireworks on the 4th of July. My attic bedroom, tucked into the top of the house like a cocoon, has always been my safe haven. It's small but cozy, with slanted ceilings that whisper rain in soft patterns, and a narrow window that catches just enough moonlight to feel like something out of a dream. I never feared the dark. I never believed in ghosts. But something changed that night. I don't remember falling asleep. That's how it usually goes. One moment I'm flipping through my phone, and the next I'm out cold, drifting into a thick black silence. But that night was different. I kept waking up, tossing and turning like something wasn't right. The air felt heavier. The silence wasn't peaceful. It pressed on me, thick and unnatural. Around midnight, I slipped into something that felt like sleep, but wasn't. It was like sinking underwater, still conscious, aware of my body, but unable to move a muscle. My eyes fluttered open, but my limbs were paralyzed. A weight pressed on my chest, deep and crushing, as if someone had stacked cinder blocks over my heart. Panic bloomed inside me, but it had no voice. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even breathe properly. Then I saw it. At the foot of my bed, standing unnaturally still in the dim glow of my nightlight, was a figure. Tall. Too tall. Its head brushed the low attic ceiling, and its body was cloaked in a darkness that didn't match the room. Like it absorbed the light around it. It had no face, at least none I could make out, but its eyes burned through the shadows. They weren't glowing brightly, more like embers. Watching. I wanted to move. I tried to move. My mind screamed at my body, but it wouldn't listen. I lay there, heart jackhammering in my chest, while this thing stared down at me, unmoving. Then it leaned forward, slowly, deliberately. Its head tilted as it came closer, until I could feel it above me. I could see the shape of its mouth now, thin lips, impossibly wide, and it began to move them. No sound came out, just the motion. Silent, slow, deliberate. Like a sentence meant only for me. I don't remember what happened next. I must have blacked out. When I came to, the figure was gone. The room was silent again. My body released its hold and I gasped, sitting upright like someone had just yanked me out of water. My sheets were soaked in sweat. My chest ached like I'd been holding my breath for hours. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the foot of the bed. The darkness felt alive. The walls of my room, once familiar, now looked like strangers watching me breathe. I didn't sleep again that night. I just waited for morning. And when the sun finally broke through that narrow attic window, I felt no relief. Only the terrible certainty that something had found me. And it knew I was awake. I spent most of the next day trying to convince myself it hadn't happened, that it was just a dream. A vivid, terrifying, incredibly real dream. But a dream nonetheless. I tried to write it off as the result of a bad meal, or a stress response I didn't know I was carrying. But no matter how many excuses I came up with, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed in that room. It was in the air, like static, like a storm just on the edge of forming. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? Hey, I woke up and saw a tall man with glowing eyes mouthing words at me and then vanishing into thin air. Yeah, no thanks. I wasn't about to get laughed out of my own life. So instead, I did what any rational person with a hint of obsession would do. I researched. It didn't take long before I stumbled into the rabbit hole, sleep paralysis. The clinical term jumped out at me like a slap to the face, a condition during REM sleep where the mind wakes up, but the body remains frozen, often accompanied by a crushing sensation in the chest and vivid hallucinations, frequently of shadowy figures, intruders, entities. It chilled me how accurate it all was, word for word, symptom for symptom, especially the part about the intruder. Apparently, I wasn't alone. People all over the world reported seeing the same thing, a tall, dark figure at the foot of their bed. Some called him the Hat Man, others called him the Shadow, But the scariest part wasn't that people saw similar things. It was that they saw him even after they woke up. That should have comforted me, knowing this had a name, a reason, a diagnosis. But it didn't. Because I remembered the way the figure moved its mouth, slowly, purposefully, as if it were speaking something ancient and knowing, something meant for me. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't remember what the words were. They shifted every time I got close. Sometimes I thought it was a name. Sometimes it felt like a warning. Once, I nearly had it. It hovered on the edge of my thoughts like a whisper from behind a wall. But when I reached for it, it twisted away, like something didn't want me to know. That was the part that haunted me most. If it was just a hallucination, why did it speak to me? Why did it look at me like it had known me longer than I'd been alive? I couldn't shake the sensation of its gaze, not just watching me, but weighing me, judging, measuring. I tried to sleep that night with the lights on. I locked the bedroom door. I even dragged a chair in front of it like I was expecting someone to walk in. But when I lay down and looked across the room, my eyes locked on the closet door. It had always just been a closet. Now, it felt like an opening. I stared at that door for hours, listening to every creak in the attic, every gust of wind outside, every imagined footstep in the walls. I kept waiting to hear the voice again, the one that hadn't made a sound but somehow still echoed in my mind. The thing with no voice had left its mark, and I was starting to think it hadn't left at all. I don't know when the sounds started. Maybe they were always there, too faint to notice until my mind was raw enough to hear them. The attic had always creaked. It was an old house, built with bones that settled and groaned. But this was different. Not the groans of timber. Not the sigh of a house breathing in the cold night. This was whispering. I heard it first as I was brushing my teeth, just before bed. A faint susurrus above the ceiling boards, like someone was dragging fabric over wood. At first, I thought it was the wind, but there was no wind. The air was dead still that night. Later, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, too alert to sleep. I didn't need a clock to know it was around midnight again. My chest felt tight, my limbs tense beneath the covers. And then it came. A tap. Software precise, right above my head. Followed by another, and another. I held my breath. The tapping grew rhythmic, almost like footsteps, but too slow, too deliberate. Then came the scraping, something dragging. Then silence. Then, very softly, whispers. Not words. Not in any language I knew. But they were meant to be understood. That's what scared me most. They were aimed at me. I bolted upright and turned on every light in the attic. I yanked open the closet, checked every corner, even unfolded the ladder to the crawl space overhead. Nothing. Just dust, insulation, and darkness that refused to give back any detail. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I bought motion-activated lights and installed one near the closet and another by the crawlspace hatch, just in case. I also wedged a heavy chair under the closet door. It was stupid, I knew that, but something about the way the door creaked at night made my skin crawl, like it was waiting to open on its own. That evening, I sat up reading everything I could about shared hallucinations. I watched documentaries about shadow people, paranormal investigations, even neuroscience lectures. None of it helped. It was all theories and speculation, wrapped in a bow of denial, because nothing explained why the face in my mirror wasn't mine. It happened when I got up to wash my face around 3 a.m. I flicked on the bathroom light, leaned in, and there it was. My reflection was slower, half a second behind, and it didn't blink when I did. And in the briefest instant before I stumbled back, I saw the same eyes. Diamond soys burning. Watching. I stared at the mirror for 10 full minutes, but it never happened again. My reflection followed my movements just fine after that. But I know what I saw. I tried to calm myself with logic. Sleep deprivation, anxiety, self-hypnosis. I repeated every rational explanation like a prayer. But prayers don't work if the thing listening isn't God. That night I didn't sleep at all. I lay in bed with the lamp on, eyes glued to the ceiling, and ears straining for every scratch, every breath, every whisper that didn't belong to me. And when the light flickered, just for a second, I didn't blink. I just listened. And somewhere above me, in the hidden part of the attic, no one ever touched. Something whispered my name. I went for a walk to clear my head. That was the lie I told myself. The truth was simpler. I needed to be away from the attic. From the whispers, the scratching, the feeling that something watched me from above every time I dared close my eyes. The sun was still up when I left. I made sure of it. I walked the neighborhood 3 times, headphones in but no music playing. I needed noise but not distraction. I needed to stay alert. And I did, right up until I climbed the stairs and turned the corner to the attic. The door was open, not wide, just a crack. But I had locked it. I know I locked it. I'd stood there that afternoon, twisted the bolt, even jiggled the knob to double check. Yet there it was, ajar, like someone had slipped in behind me and never left. I stood in the hallway for a full minute, heart punching at my ribs, before finally pushing the door open. The lights were off. Every bulb I'd left burning, my lamp, the overhead, even the small nightlight I kept near the outlet, dead. I flipped the switch. Nothing. The air felt wrong, like the attic had been sealed in plastic. Hot and still and dense, like it was holding its breath. I stepped in, slow, deliberate, each creak of the floorboards under my feet loud enough to make me flinch. That's when I noticed the closet door. It was open, not wide, just a few inches, but it hadn't been open when I left. It never was. I had locked it with a latch and propped a chair against it, the same way I always did. Now the chair was on its side, legs bent, like something had kicked it. My skin turned cold. I approached, fighting every instinct in my body to turn and run. The air near the closet was freezing. I could see my breath as I got closer. I reached for the latch, hand trembling, and swung the door fully open. Nothing, just darkness, no movement, no figure waiting inside. But the walls, I leaned in. Scratches, thin, deliberate, vertical, claw marks maybe, or fingernails, and they weren't on the door. They were inside it, as if something had been trying to get out. I stumbled back and nearly tripped over the fallen chair. My stomach turned, a primal urge bubbling up through every nerve ending telling me to get out. But I didn't. I sat on the edge of my bed until nightfall, too shaken to move, too curious to leave. And then, just after midnight, the room went quiet. Not silent, quiet. The kind of quiet that feels deeper than silence, like something was waiting to be heard. Then the voice came. It didn't boom. It didn't whisper. It didn't speak from the corner or the closet or the ceiling. It came from everywhere at once, vibrating through the walls, the floor, the marrow in my bones. One word. Evan. Just that. But it knew me. It used my name. And for the first time, I realized it wasn't just visiting me in sleep. It was learning me. And tonight, it wanted me to know that. I used to measure time in days. Mornings, meals, phone calls, sunsets. But now time is a blur. Measured only in how long I can keep my eyes open before sleep drags me under again. The nights have bled into the days. I can't tell if I'm dreaming when I'm awake, or awake when I'm dreaming. Sleep used to come easily. Now I fight it like it's trying to kill me. Because maybe it is. After the night it said my name, something shifted. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean physically. My room felt different. The air was colder, thicker. I began seeing movement where there was none. A flicker in the reflection of the window. A shape at the corner of my eye that vanished when I turned. At first, I told myself I was just exhausted. Hallucinations, paranoia, anxiety, all symptoms of sleep deprivation. But then I started seeing him in other places. In mirrors at the pharmacy. In the reflection of a subway window. In the crowd at a grocery store. Just a silhouette, standing too still in the distance, staring directly at me through all the chaos. He's always there. Watching. Never moving. I started writing everything down. Pages of notes. Descriptions, times, feelings, fragments of what I could remember from that first night. The words he mouthed still twisted just out of reach. Every time I thought I was close, my head would ache and the meaning would dissolve, like ink in water. One morning, desperate for distraction, I spoke to the woman who lives 2 houses down, Mrs. Callahan. She's been here for decades, knows everyone who's ever rented the attic room. I asked her if anyone ever complained about strange things. She stared at me, long and careful, like she was deciding whether I could handle what she was about to say. Years ago, she said, there was a boy named Tyler who lived in that room. Quiet kid. Always looked tired. I remember one day he told me he kept waking up and seeing a man at the foot of his bed. Tall, dark, never spoke. Then one day, Tyler stopped coming home. Just vanished. No forwarding address. Nothing. I asked if the landlord ever said anything. She shook her head. That room's always been off. That night, I tore apart the attic. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe proof that I wasn't insane. Maybe a reason. Maybe a way out. I didn't find any of those. But I did find something. Under a loose floorboard near the far wall, one I'd never touched, I found a journal. Dusty, yellowed. Its pages warped with time and something else. Moisture, maybe, or sweat, or fear. The handwriting was jagged and frantic. The name scrawled inside the front cover. Caleb. I flipped through the pages, heart pounding. And the more I read, the more bile rose in my throat. It was all there. Everything. The paralysis, the whispers, the glowing eyes, the thing that watched from the shadows and never spoke. Until it did. And at the bottom of the final entry, a line that stopped me cold. He said, "Tonight is my last night awake." I slammed the journal shut and backed away like it would bite me. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit down. I just stood with my back against the wall, clutching a lamp and staring at the closet door. But sometime before dawn, despite everything, my eyes closed, and I dreamed of running, only to feel hands grab my ankles and drag me backward into the dark. I didn't open the journal again for 2 days, not because I forgot, not because I was busy, but because I couldn't. Just knowing it was in the drawer beneath my bed made me sick to my stomach. Like whatever had written it still lingered between the pages, breathing in the silence, waiting for me to open it again. But eventually, I did. Because I had to. The journal was brittle with age, pages stuck at the corners. But the ink hadn't faded. The writing was erratic, sometimes scrawled in long, hurried lines, other times cramped and squeezed into the margins as if Caleb had been running out of space or time. He described everything. The sleep paralysis, the eyes in the dark, the whispers that came from nowhere but said things only he could understand, the same cold breath near the closet, the same voice that eventually said his name, and then, worse. He said the figure didn't just appear at night anymore. It began visiting him in dreams within dreams, dragging him down hallways he didn't recognize, showing him images that made no sense. A door with no knob, a bleeding key, mirrors that reflected rooms he'd never stepped into, and always the same figure. Tall, impossibly tall, with embers for eyes and a mouth that opened too wide. One entry stopped me cold. I started hearing it during the day, not just whispers, words. It says, "I brought this on myself," that the more I think about it, the stronger it becomes, that it feeds on attention, curiosity, fear, that I let it in. I read that line 5 times, then 6, and I realized I had done the exact same thing. I had poked the wound, investigated it, documented it, obsessed over it. And maybe that was the invitation. Maybe it didn't need a ritual or blood or a Ouija board. Maybe it just needed me to believe in it long enough. The final entry was barely legible, smudged, shaky, written as if he could barely hold the pen. He said, "Tonight is my last night awake." I told myself I wouldn't sleep, but I think I already am. I think I never woke up. That line haunted me. The idea that you could fall asleep without knowing and never come back. That maybe I was already there too, caught somewhere between dreaming and dying, and the man at the foot of the bed was just waiting for me to stop pretending otherwise. I packed a bag that night, just clothes, cash, and the journal. I didn't even turn off the lights. I told myself I'd go to a motel, or my brother's house, or a hospital, anywhere with people and noise and light. But I didn't make it to the door, because as I stepped toward the stairs, my legs locked. Not like they were stuck, like they weren't mine. And then everything shifted. The room tilted. My vision bent inward. The walls warped and melted like wax, and I felt my body falling, not down, but inward, like I was being folded into myself. And through it all, I heard it, the whisper. But this time, it wasn't a whisper. It was laughter, software cruel, close. I woke up on the floor, sweating, breathing hard, the bag untouched beside me. Only, I don't know if I ever made it to the stairs. I don't know if I ever stood up at all. Because the next morning the journal was gone. And the only thing left on my nightstand was a scrap of torn paper. On it, written in the same spidery handwriting I had memorized by now, was one sentence. You don't leave. You just stop waking up. I don't know how long I've been awake. 3 days? 4? Maybe more. The hours have melted, smeared together like wet ink on parchment. I've taped blackout curtains over the windows, covered the mirrors, unplugged the clocks. Time doesn't matter anymore. Only the light, because when the light goes out, he comes closer. I've stopped trying to fight sleep. That war ended a long time ago. Now I just try to delay it, hold it back like floodwater pressing against a cracking wall. But I can feel it seeping in, worse than that. I can feel him. I signed up for a sleep study, a desperate attempt at control. A sterile room, cameras, electrodes, strangers with clipboards. I thought maybe science would catch him, trap him, or at least validate that I wasn't crazy. On the second night, I flatlined. 30 seconds, no heartbeat, no breath. They brought me back. At least that's what they said. But I remember something else. Floating above my body, watching the tall figure standing beside the bed. His hand was inside my chest, fingers curled around something that didn't bleed. Something that glowed. When I gasped back to life, I knew what it meant. He had touched something deeper than flesh. Something he was waiting to take. And I remembered the words. Not just the shape of his mouth, but the sound. Clear. Final. You opened the door. I never left. I had invited him. Every search, every question. Every night I stared too long into the dark, waiting for him to return. The attic isn't mine anymore. It belongs to him. I tried to stay awake with caffeine, cold showers, loud music, pain. Nothing works. My body shuts down in minutes. I fall into these brief black absences, 10 seconds, 30, sometimes longer, where I lose myself completely. And every time, I feel him get closer. I started recording myself while I sleep. I set up my phone, pointed it at the bed, hit record, and watched the footage every morning with shaking hands. The first night, I saw nothing. The second, a shadow that flickered at the edge of the frame. The third, I saw him, crawling, over me. He didn't walk. He slithered, like liquid shadow, limbs bending the wrong way, face inches from mine. Watching, studying, like he was learning how to wear me. I stopped watching the videos after that, but I kept recording. I don't know why. Maybe part of me hoped I'd vanish on camera. Maybe I already have. Because lately, when I look in the mirror, I don't recognize my face. It moves like me. It blinks when I blink. But there's something off. Like it's trying too hard to pretend it's me. I think I'm already gone. I feel hollow, like something has been scooping me out night by night. My memories slip. My voice cracks. And when I speak out loud, the sound doesn't feel like it belongs to me. The journal, the whispers, the shadow man. They were never just hauntings. They were invitations. I fed him with every second of fear. And now he wears me like a mask. I'm not writing this as a warning. It's already too late for me. I'm writing it because I think someone else will find this. Maybe in the attic. Maybe under a loose floorboard. Maybe on a phone that never stops recording. And maybe you'll read this and you'll wonder. You'll stare too long at the dark corners of your room. You'll Google the word sleep paralysis. You'll try to understand. And that will be enough. Because that's all it takes. Curiosity, fear, belief. The door opens. He never left. The